Wilhelmina Ironwood. The forge was quiet, save for the rhythmic hiss of cooling metal and the sigh of the bellows. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of sunlight piercing the grime-streaked window. For 30 years, I, Wilhelmina Ironwood, had been the sole smith of Hollow Creek, a village more accustomed to ghosts than gleaming steel. Each day was a replica of the last. Mend a plow, sharpen an axe, occasionally craft a horseshoe. People said I was a recluse. They weren't wrong. My only companions were the embers, the anvil, and the ghosts of techniques my father, a master craftsman, had drilled into me. It was a life of quiet competence, a deliberate exile from the world, and precisely what I thought I wanted, until the raven came. It wasn't the raven itself. Hollow Creek had plenty of those, omens of one sort or another. It was what the raven carried, a small obsidian box bound with tarnished silver. No return address, no sender's mark, only a single glyph etched into the lid, a spiral within a square. I hadn't seen that symbol in decades. It smelled of salt and something else, something ancient and metallic, like the taste of blood on a forgotten blade. I pried open the box, expecting a trinket, a threat perhaps. Instead, I found a single, perfectly formed crystal, pulsing with a faint internal light. A crystal from Xylos, to be precise, and with it a note, written in a spidery hand, "They remember." The crystal was unlike anything I'd ever seen, even in my father's extensive collection of ores and gemstones. Its light wasn't merely reflected, it emanated from within, shifting in hues of amethyst and emerald. Old journals, locked away in the deepest recesses of the forge, yielded grim answers. My father hadn't just been a smith, he'd been a guardian, one of a dwindling order tasked with protecting the entrances to the crystal caves of Xylos, a network of subterranean passages said to hold unimaginable power. The spiral within a square was their sigil. "They remembers" wasn't a threat, it was a warning. Someone, somewhere, was stirring the darkness that my father had dedicated his life to containing, and they knew about me. Old man Tiber, the village historian, scoffed when I showed him the crystal and spoke of Xylos. A collector of dusty books and forgotten lore, Tiber preferred speculation to substance. Crystal caves, guardians, darkness stirring. Sounds like a penny dreadful, Wilhelmina. You've been inhaling too much forge smoke. He reluctantly admitted that he'd heard whispers of Xylos in his research, dismissed as folklore. It took a demonstration, the crystal's light reacting to a specific passage in a crumbling text about Xylos's protective seals, to finally convince him. "All right," he conceded, adjusting his spectacles. "Perhaps there's more to this than meets the eye. But understand, I remain profoundly skeptical." A seemingly minor setback, the theft of my father's oldest hammer, a tool of immense sentimental and practical value, turned out to be anything but. The thief wasn't interested in its metal, he wanted the inscription on the handle, a series of runes that served as a key to a hidden chamber beneath the forge. Inside, we discovered a map detailing several entrances to the Xylos caves and a chilling message scrawled in charcoal, "The collector nears." The collector, a figure spoken of only in hushed tones, a ruthless antiquarian obsessed with acquiring Xylos's power for himself. His methods were unorthodox, to say the least. We were ambushed on our way to the nearest town, a settlement that might offer us some assistance. The collector's agents, masked and efficient, separated us. I found myself trapped in an abandoned mill, forced to fend off relentless attacks while Tiber was taken away, presumably for interrogation. I managed to escape, battered and bruised, but alone. My trial wasn't a physical one, but a test of resolve. Could I face the darkness alone, or would I succumb to the isolation that had defined my life for so long? The weight of my father's legacy pressed down on me. Hidden within the hammer's inscription, a detail I'd overlooked for years, was a familial connectity. On to the guardians of Xylos. My father hadn't merely protected the caves, He'd been a descendant of the original wardens, a lineage imbued with a latent ability to manipulate the crystal's energy. The realization struck me like a forge blast. I possessed the same ability, a power dormant within me, waiting to be awakened. My isolation wasn't a choice, but a safeguard. My father had deliberately kept me hidden, protecting me from those who would exploit my lineage. I found Tiber locked away in the Collector's makeshift headquarters, an old observatory overlooking. He was surprisingly defiant, having managed to memorize key passages from the observatory's ancient texts. With my newfound ability, I was able to disrupt the Collector's energy conduits, creating a diversion that allowed us to escape. Together, we confronted him, a gaunt man surrounded by stolen artifacts and powered by a corrupted Xylos crystal. It was a battle of wills as much as steel, my lineage against his obsession. Tiber, surprisingly adept with a crowbar, provided crucial support. The Collector was defeated, the corrupted crystal shattered. The entrance to the Xylos caves thankfully remained sealed. The experience irrevocably changed me. No longer the solitary smith of Hollow Creek, I embraced my heritage, accepting my role as a guardian. I began training others, preparing them to defend the caves should the need arise. Hollow Creek, once a forgotten village, became a beacon of protection. The quiet life I once craved was gone, replaced by a purpose, a connection to something larger than myself. And sometimes, when the wind blew just right, I could almost hear my father's voice, a quiet approval echoing through the forge.